The most fundamental question we first have to ask ourselves is, does gear matter? It matters up to a certain point. Sounds vague? I'll make it clear with this single curve. This curve describes everything that we buy and the value that we get out of it, along with many other things, and it goes like this. So we see, as we invest a bit of money, immediately the value goes way up, like this. This is the difference between zero, nothing, and something. So if we have no camera and all of a sudden we invest in a camera, all of a sudden the value shoots way up, like so. If we decide on later to upgrade the camera, something to a more expensive camera, for example, let's say this is like $1,000, we see that the value that we get is not as much, the difference. And imagine we already have a $1,000 camera, we buy a $3,000 camera, something like this. We see that the difference between a $2,000 camera and a $3,000 camera is not that big. The value that we get is, of course, a little bit better, but it's nowhere as near as the difference between nothing to something. No camera to having a camera. It's a big difference. Expensive camera to a even more expensive camera. Yeah, of course, this is probably better, but not by that much. So I hope you got to understand how the value works according to how much money you have. Having no phone to having a phone is a game changer. But if you're upgrading a phone to a better phone, it has the same features, maybe it's a little bit faster, the camera is slightly better, but in reality, the value difference you have is not that big. The first jump is always the most drastic one that you feel yourself. Understanding this curve is a game changer. For example, the camera I right now have is not a full frame camera. It is an APS-C sensor, a little smaller than the full frame, but not as big. And I always thought, oh, maybe I need the full frame to have these really blurry and cinematic shots. But in reality, to upgrade from this camera to a full frame is not that big of a jump compared to your smartphone to a camera. And after years of this being in my head, I have not yet upgraded. I'm still using this gear that I have been using for years, which is perfectly fine. It is now your turn. What kind of situation maybe for you? In your case, what would be best to invest? For example, if you only have a phone camera, which is, by the way, perfectly fine, but want to invest in a camera. Or if you already have a camera but don't have a microphone yet, maybe you should invest in a microphone. The jump from no camera to a camera is huge, and also a change from the built-in microphone to a nicer microphone is also pretty big. See what's worth it. Gear does matter up to a certain point. When you get the basic things, you can already do so much with it. Good luck. This big topic of cameras might seem very complex at first if you don't understand about cameras, but it doesn't need to be this complicated. I'll make it very simple for 3 different levels. Starting off with level 1, we have the phone. The phone has a tiny sensor, but honestly nowadays the quality that it comes from something so tiny always blows my mind. It always fits in your pocket, it's always with me. It's a great place to start. I use this sometimes because it is the only thing I have. I don't bring my big camera with me all the time. But if you're just starting out and don't have any camera, using your phone is a great place to start. I highly recommend sticking with the phone first. Learn what it does, learn its limitations, and see if you like making videos. That's how all hobbies start, basically. The transition from level 1 to level 2 would be an upgrade from a phone, if you have the budget, to a camera. This is, by the way, just a show camera. I don't use this camera. The camera I use is actually here, but this does the job. Remember the difference that I showed you between having nothing and something, this is kind of the same. So you have a phone to a camera. It's a pretty big jump. And I would say if you have done some videos already and don't know where to first upgrade, you should either upgrade the camera or a microphone depending on the quality of your videos. Let's say you're happy with the quality of the videos, then maybe the microphone is a better improvement to your overall experience. But let's get back to the camera because this is something that we'll focus on this class. With the camera, you have full control of the video. Of course, the phone, you can also have the manual settings, but having the buttons and learning what the aperture does, changing and the shutter speed, you have more flexibility and more power with the camera than compared with the phone. The camera also has a bigger sensor than the camera, so the quality of the image, the dynamic range, so how much brightness you can get and lower light performance is better. And if you don't know anything about cameras, you can basically look at two different types of sensors. So APS-C is a sensor basically this size inside the camera, and full frame goes a little bit bigger. It captures more light basically. It has a bigger sensor. The thing is, APS-C cameras, they're usually smaller, more compact because the sensor is also smaller. And the full frame cameras are bigger and the lenses have to be thicker to really adjust for the sensor size. So for example, here is a perfectly good lens for APS-C. And the version for the full frame would be heavier, bigger, and more expensive. So I would recommend, if you're looking for a camera, use APS-C. Full frame is more professional level, but it's just more expensive, especially for YouTube. It's not really worth it. So after you chose what type of sensor you have to start thinking about maybe what brand. And to be honest, all brands at a similar budget do basically the same. So a Nikon that costs around 700 euros will do basically the same as a Sony that also costs 700 euros. They have tiny differences, but basically they do about the same. And the camera that I'm using right now is a Sony ZV-E, and the reason I choose Sony is because Sony are usually smaller in size of the camera, and I prefer smaller cameras. That's the main reason. Also, the autofocus is really fast compared to other brands, but those things are like whatever. Also, I like the flexibility and the variety of lenses that you can change and upgrade to. Which is also a good thing. So now, more importantly, for a YouTube camera, or basically a video camera, there are two features that I find that are essential for any camera. If you buy a camera that doesn't have one of these features, it will make your process a whole lot harder and not so future-proof. For example, the first camera I had was the Sony 6000, and it didn't have one of the features, and I ended up selling it for another upgraded APS-C camera so that I could use the full features. The first one is having a place where you can plug an external microphone. For example, this camera doesn't have it. There's no place where you can plug a microphone, so basically you're limited to the microphone that comes with the camera. There's no upgrade, nothing you can change, and this limits a lot, especially for video. For photography, that doesn't really matter, but we're talking about YouTube and it's for video. It essentially needs a microphone slot. And the second thing that, for example, this camera doesn't have is this camera has a fixed screen. It doesn't really flip outwards. Let me show you better. So you see the camera, you flip and I can basically see myself on the screen, and for YouTube this makes a big difference. And actually a third one and the last feature that I forgot to tell and we'll cover more in the next lesson is the ability to change lenses. So for example, this is a bridge camera which does not allow me to change lenses. So I'm stuck with this lens, and it's not so good because it doesn't give me the flexibility to have other lenses, for example like this or like this, that I could change and put in the camera itself. I am just stuck with this one, which doesn't make it very future-proof. So 3 things: the ability to change lenses, a microphone slot for an external microphone, and the ability to flip the screen. The third is the least important, but trust me, it makes a big difference, especially for YouTube if you're doing everything by yourself. Now, with that said, I hope I got to enlarge your knowledge about cameras, especially for video. Let's not forget, phone cameras are great. They do everything well. They have some limitations, but if you're just starting out, it does not matter. You don't need to think about a camera. You can use your phone, which does a lot of things pretty well. And of course, if you want to up your video level or already have some experience and understand the limitations, maybe it's best to invest in the camera, making sure you have those components for the video specifically so it lasts you long term. Don't make the same mistake as I did. And with that said, I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll talk about everything you need to know about lenses. If you already have a camera that can interchange lenses, then this lesson is for you. It is not really made for beginners, maybe level 2 and 3, but I would recommend it to anyone who would love to learn more about cameras. So essentially for lenses, there are 2 types, and I have both of them. The first one is a zoom lens, so you can have the ability to zoom in or out with this lens. And the second one is a prime lens. This has a fixed focal length. So in this case, you can see it's a 35 millimeter, and this ring is only for focusing. Meanwhile, this one has a focusing ring and a zoom ring. If you don't understand about lenses, why on earth would people buy such a limiting camera that you cannot zoom? That seems ridiculous. But it's actually not, because having a fixed focal length makes the ability for the lens, first of all, to be very small. You see how short this thing is? And the second thing, and most important, is that the aperture, so basically how big you can open it, how much light you can let it through, is also bigger. So the bigger the aperture you have, the more blurry effect you can have. And usually zoom lenses are limited by how big you can because of all the moving parts and how big they can get. So for video, I would not recommend the prime lens because it cannot zoom and it doesn't give you flexibility. This is much better for photography because it gives that really blurry effect that you don't get to see from the phones. So let's talk about zoom lenses because that's what's more important. There are different ranges. There are ultra-wide lenses, which is this one, and there are other normal range lenses. And then there are really big lenses that really zoom in, but you don't need those. For a normal lens, you're looking at 16 to 50 millimeters. This is for APS-C, for example. And basically for every brand of camera, it always comes with a kit lens. The kit lens is basically the most manufactured, slightly lower quality compared to the premium lenses, but it is a great lens. It is usually small, cheap, you can buy them for very cheap, and it does a lot of things. It's very flexible. So this kit lens covers a wide range all the way to somewhat like a zoomed range, which you can use for close-ups or things that are really far away. This is the lens that basically everyone should start. It does everything and it's very flexible, and when I go on a trip, I always use this one because it's so small and compact and it's very lightweight and it does everything. Sometimes for video, I will introduce the second lens, which does the ultra wide range. Sometimes you're in a position where you don't have enough space and you must use an ultra wide. This might be your second, this is for level 3 by the way. It's very advanced. Essentially for level 1 and 2, this is more than good enough. For level 3, maybe you want to start upgrading to other lenses that might have different zoom range. In this case is like an ultra wide, which covers the really wide spectrum and it goes for these really crazy effects. And one last thing, people always hate on the kit lens for some reason because they're lower quality, maybe they're less sharp. There are better lenses, more premium, that have the same focal length, so the same zoom range, and they maybe have a wider aperture. I had one of those, it got stolen, and I was forced back to use the kit lens. And I had to say, I was before a hater of the kit lens, and being forced again to use the kit lens, I have to say the kit lens does a lot of things right. And it's really good for video. Maybe for photography, if you really zoom in, maybe it's not the sharpest thing, but for video is really great. The kit lens goes a long way, and me, after using cameras for 5 years, I still use them. I didn't used to because it got stolen, but the setback really taught me a big lesson that the quality of the kit lens is not as bad as people think. It does amazing things. So to get everything together, if you're level 1, level 2, use the kit lens with the normal zoom range. It's the lens, the most manufactured lens that always comes, the cheapest one. Don't use prime lenses unless you want the style of it. I've tried to use these lenses to film, but it's just too hard. It doesn't give enough flexibility, especially when I'm out and about in the city. And for level 2 and 3, if you want other zoom ranges, for example, you have the kit lens. If you have any zoom ranges, this one does an ultra wide, and maybe you want a third one where it does really zoomed in pictures, but honestly for YouTube, you're either better off with this one and this one, because you're not really zooming in to like birds. That's more for professional settings, and you want these really unique shots of really zoomed in all the way, or if you have the budget. But for YouTube, we're looking at these two, a normal zoom and an ultra wide, which does everything you will need. If you have a camera with the normal kit lens, so 16 to 50, the normal range, I would really recommend you to just use that and not think about other lenses. Use it day to day, see what maybe limitations you might have or what things you can or cannot do. Really try and master it. Remember, with the kit lens, you can do so much. At this point, if you have a camera with a kit lens, gear doesn't matter as much. Of course, other lenses might have other features, but the kit lens basically does everything. Only when you master the kit lens, then you can start thinking about a new upgrade or a different type of lens. Otherwise, if you don't understand what the kit lens does, you'll be more likely to buy the wrong type of gear and waste money afterward. First master, and then think of buying something new. Then master, and then buy something new. Of course, this cycle doesn't need to continue on forever. You can be perfectly content, for example, with the camera and lens. And there are so many other areas that I will introduce throughout this class that you might want to improve on. It takes time, but that's how you best learn what your gear can do. Best of luck. The ability to place your camera anywhere where you want with any angle is only possible with the tripod. It might seem straightforward, but I have a few lessons that I learned the hard way. So let's talk about tripods. I have here one here at the bottom, a smaller one. I use this more for travel. And inside my home, I have this bigger one that doesn't really fit the screen, which is a little bit heavier, and maybe if I'm on a road trip, I'll bring this one because it's more stable. The tripod is an amazing tool that allows you to really put the camera at any angle, and is essential even if you're using a phone or if you're using a camera. By the way, these are not the most expensive tripods. They're tripods that go for hundreds of dollars, but these ones are more of the cheaper brands. I don't even know the brands, I don't really care. And in this lesson, I'm just gonna point out a few features that tripods might or might not have that I think are deal breakers when I'm looking for one. The first feature I always try and see is how many levels. So this is 1 level, 2, and 3. So how long can this go? Usually how long actually doesn't really matter, but if I'm looking for a tripod that I'm gonna constantly open and close, for example this one, this is a really big one, I'm trying to look for the least amount of levels. So this one is more compact compared to this one, but this one has 3, which makes it more annoying every time I want to open it. So that's why I use this one inside. So 1 and 2, and you can open all the way. and it makes it for less steps. Trust me, in the beginning, this really doesn't bother, but if you're doing it every week, every time, it really starts to bother how many times you have to open 3 and then open and close them. It's just a lot of work. For the sake of compactness, I have this one that has 3, but I usually don't use all 3. This one I use all the time. That's why it's more important to only have 2 levels. The second feature that's a deal breaker if it doesn't have, at least for me, is, for example, this tripod. You open this and this piece comes out. This piece, if you're not familiar, it basically locks the tripod in. They have the same hole. Every camera has this hole and it's fixed. So if I'm traveling on a road trip or anything, I always have this piece here. And then when I'm outside and I set the tripod, it's easy to just put it in. And it's fixed. And if I quickly want to shoot something else, because I'm shooting alone, I'm trying to get as many different shots, I just take this out and it's hand-free. It's much easier to take and put because some tripods don't have that and you have to always screw in, screw out, which makes it really annoying. If you have several different tripods, maybe you could have where they have the same opening. I unfortunately don't have that. I don't have the budget for it. You move away, maybe you're in a different country, and then you take this off. And this basically, with your camera, fits in the fanny pack or your camera bag, whatever, that much easier. You don't have to constantly screw in or out. This is a deal breaker if the tripod doesn't have that. And the third thing that I learned recently is usually bigger tripods here have a hook. This is something when you open the tripod, like so, you can put your backpack so it really weighs down the tripod. It makes it more stable. I'm looking maybe to substitute this one because, as you can see, it doesn't have a hook. And what happened was this. My lens just fell and it broke. I'm really mad because look at this. Oh, so yeah, I was using this light tripod and it basically fell due to the wind. There was some strong winds and it fell. That's why I had to buy another one, the one you're actually seeing right now. Fortunately, these are not too expensive. It cost me 80, euros because I live in Europe. But maybe I'm looking for a different tripod that is small, has this piece and a hook where I can put a heavy backpack or anything to really weigh it down and make it more stable. So these are 3 things I'm looking for at any tripod. No matter if they're expensive or cheap, going for these things will go a long way in the future, in the long run. Now, with all of that said, if you don't have a tripod, I strongly recommend you to get one. You can get some attachments that will work on the phone or for the camera. And just now you know that you don't need the best gear possible. I certainly don't. I have good enough gear, but see what features you want from your tripod. If you don't have any, I would really recommend maybe buying a cheaper one and understanding what might be annoying if you keep doing over and over again. But having a tripod is a game changer and makes everything much easier. With that said, I'll see you in the next lesson. Here's a 100% true fact. You and me can tolerate bad video much better than we can tolerate bad audio. Let me say that again. We can tolerate bad video, but if we hear bad audio, that quickly becomes unbearable. This is why this lesson is focused on microphones. There are 2 types of microphones I want to talk about. The first one is the microphone that's on top of your camera, and the second one is a wireless microphone. So I bought these 2. This, for example, I thought I was going to use it, but was a mistake. I put it on top of a camera. You can see how big this is, how much attention this gets. It really didn't make me comfortable when I'm filming outside. So I used to use this maybe for voiceovers, but well, not anymore. Next, what I decided to switch to, you see here, this is the wireless microphone. This is a piece that connects to the camera. And this is a piece of the microphone that's actually itself. Actually, the microphone that I'm using is this one. This is connecting to the camera, and I just put it on my jacket, and it makes it much easier. And you see the difference of size. This is tiny, very discreet, and the other one is a directional microphone. It's a bit too big, so be careful of the size you buy of your microphone, because this is supposedly a small microphone. There are much bigger ones, maybe they make you look more professional. Also, this is good if you're close to the subject or close to the thing you want to hear. If you're really far away from the camera, like for this class, it's better to get a wireless microphone. I would say get one of these. They're a bit more pricey, but it's worth the money. This is not so worth it. These are very flexible for so many different situations. A jump from a microphone from the camera or this one to a wireless one is huge. Skip this middle one. I will go for this one. So now that you know much more about microphones, you understand why maybe for this case, the camera is quite far away. I need maybe a wireless microphone. But if you are maybe indoors and talking close to the camera, then maybe you don't need a microphone. You can use, for example, for voiceovers, a cheaper microphone that's on the table, maybe a USB one. There are several types, but it depends really on what type of videos you do. For example, if I'm doing a type of vlog video, I'm always pretty close to the camera. So the distance between me and the camera and microphone are actually pretty close, and the audio gets pretty good. So maybe you don't need to invest in a microphone. If you're doing different type of videos where you put the camera a little bit further away, then maybe it's something that you might want to consider upgrading. With that said, I'll see you in the next lesson. Good music that really matches well with the mood really transforms your video up to the next level. Don't believe me? Let me show you some examples. One year ago, my life looked completely different. So, for example, let's go on the computer and see that YouTube has a pretty big library of copyrighted free music. You can see here the license type is you can use this audio on track of any of your videos, including videos that you monetize. No attribution is required. And for the first few years when I started YouTube, that was more than good enough. You can find songs of any type of genre or moods or anything like that, and it does the job pretty well. Even has sound effects, and you can filter by genre, mood, or artist name, any other thing. However, when I jumped from the YouTube free music to a more premium platform, the quality of my videos saw a significant difference. For example, you still have all your same genres, maybe a bit more detail, a bit more accurate. You have a lot of themes that go around, but it's not only the quality of music that's better, it's also that, for example, you can download one song into 4 different tracks. For example, when I download, I see all the stems, and I download them all individually. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I play, suddenly, the world I used to... you hear all the 4 different tracks at the same time. But let's single out this one. You only hear the drums this time. Or here, the bass. Baby, baby, you are really hurting me. You only hear the voice, which is really important, more important than you might think. It gives you that much more flexibility. For example, if you're doing a compilation, maybe you want the lady to sing. But as I'm explaining something on camera, all of a sudden you might want to have the rest of the music, maybe just the beats, the drums and the bass, but the lady, you can remove the voice of the singing. It's the sum of these big and small moments that define you. Don't let them escape. This for me was a complete game changer. And you have that much more flexibility just because all the songs here are divided into several different tracks. I've researched multiple premium platforms of music, and I have to say that personally I prefer Epidemic Sound simply because the music choice is larger and the website is more created for creators and professionals. From level 1, if you're just starting out, I totally recommend you using the free YouTube music that already comes with the platform, copyright free, that you can use on any of your videos. If you are starting out to be on level 2, that you already have some experience and understand maybe the limitations of the music, maybe if you have the budget, it's worth it to upgrade. I thought about it for years to upgrade it. I never did, but once I did it, I never looked back. I have zero regrets. This is actually my second year of using premium music, and it's been a blessing. Oh, and for some reason, if you decide to actually cancel the subscription, all the videos that you did previously with the music from Epidemic Sound are completely safe. They are not risk of copyright because at the time when you had the subscription active, you use the music and it's fine forever. Now that you really learn the advantages and have a budget of $10 a month to spend, then maybe I really recommend you upgrading your music to the next level. The link is in the class description. The flexibility it provides cannot be denied in the long run. I'll see you in the next lesson. For years, I've been shooting videos without an external light, which is completely fine if you're using natural light that comes from the window. If you angle it properly, you have good looking shots. Light was something I always thought it was a challenge because it was something extra I had to carry around, but if you're doing videos in an indoor space like this, then light is very essential. So lighting at first seems very complicated. There are so many components and so many light modifiers that might seem overwhelming. That's the feeling I got before I bought even my first light. But I got to experience it, and I can really tell you it's not as complicated as it seems. Especially for indoor use, if it rains a lot and you cannot film outside, having a light gives great flexibility into what you can do and film inside. So the light I bought is actually the Amaran 60XS. It is the smallest light possible compared to my hand. See how small this thing is? The best part is it's powerful. You can change the light intensity into the percentage. And also, if you hold this button, you can all of a sudden now change the temperature of the light, which might be useful in certain situations, but I keep it at a neutral one. And the light comes with this standard modifier here that attaches here, and it focuses the light a little more. You see, it's not the best because it has a hot spot here of more light, and the light around here is a bit more diffused. But I can use this sort of shower cap they provided also and put it on top. And all of a sudden you see that it diffuses more of the light, the hot spot is gone, and it gives a more ambient light. This is something I use sometimes, but not really all the time. If I want some harsh light, I'll use it on the table, like so. You can also use a cover here, like a cloth, to really make everything darker. The next modifier is the standard diffuser. You can hook this giant thing on this tiny light, which is a bit funny. And as you can see, it really diffuses the light very well. I use this when I'm doing product photography. I use this to take nice photos because it diffuses the light overall and it creates a soft shadow. Also good for product photography. For example, in the class when I'm doing the top-down shot, I'm using the diffuser and not the other harsh light. So you see the snoot is more heavy and uses a lens to convert all the lights into basically a parallel line. And you can see it creates this spotlight effect that I use very well for the background of my videos here, like that. Also something that I never use, but it comes with a lot of these modifiers. And if I put and slide, you'll see the difference. Let me focus it by turning the ring. And you see, it really looks like a window from outside. I think it creates a cool effect. There are other modifiers, but this is one of my favorites. With that said, I hope you got to understand the power that light can have and the different types of light modifiers. With that said, I'll see you in the next lesson. After filming everything, where do you dump all the files? If your answer is just a computer, maybe there are some risks associated with it. There are two different kinds of storage. The left one here, it's an HDD, and the right one is an SSD. I'm gonna break it down in simple terms, the difference between this one, and why I use both. So an HDD has basically inside a disk, a physical disk that stores your data. An SSD, it has no physical moving parts. Therefore, this one is cheaper for bigger storages, and this one is more expensive. But as you can see, this one is bulkier, and the SSD is slimmer, much lighter and much slimmer. Because this one has a physical disk rotating, it's more prone to damage if you let it fall or movements inside your bag. This one is completely digital inside. It's basically more resistant to damage or falling, anything. So the question becomes, why do I use both the HDD and not the SSD? I use the HDD when I want to dump all my files, all my video files organized in folders, and I don't want to care about them or really see them again, into a big storage space for cheap. So this basically stays at home. There's no much movement. It stays at home in one place. It has a bigger storage. And this SSD, I use it for traveling or editing. Because for example, when I'm editing with a computer, what I usually do is I copy the files to the SSD here and also here, so that I have two copies of the same footage. In case the computer breaks or something happens with this one, it's always safe in one. The reason I edit in this SSD, and also other professionals do it, is because it's easier maybe to take your project into another computer if you're working with multiple people. But for me, I'm working alone. It's basically out of safety because this computer is a little older. I trust more this SSD than this computer. So all the files are here. If something happens to this one, my projects and my videos, all the editing, all the hours of editing are still safe. And after I edit with all of these videos and I don't use them anymore, eventually, maybe once per year, I dump them all here. I actually have two of those because footage are memories and they're really important. I copy into two different equal HDDs just in case one breaks, because that footage is all my memories. I put a lot of importance into all of these videos. Even for level 1, level 2, level 3, I always recommend having an extra backup where your files are going to be. I'm sure you had this experience where your laptop died and all your folders and files are gone. Having them backed up in an HDD, even for a non-YouTuber, it's a no-brainer. And I'm shocked by the amount of people who never back up their photos and videos. It really should be done. Level 1, level 2, level 3. If you have unlimited amount of money, I would really just go for an SSD. For the budget, for bigger storage spaces, I buy the HDD because I know they're just gonna stay at home. But for travel, I always take this one because it's so thin and so compact. It stays in my bag with all the movement of walking and running, no problem. This has no physical things moving inside. It's always worth also having an SSD. Now that you learn more about storage, maybe it's something that you might want to consider. If you don't edit with an external SSD, maybe it's time to invest in one. Of course, if you store them on a cloud, it's the safest one, but it gets really expensive because videos take up a lot of space. Anytime I had to buy more storage, I always think it's kind of expensive, but it was always worth it to copy the files in multiple places because all of these clips I have are memories and they're invaluable to me. I hope you got to understand more, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Most people think when it comes to editing software that they should only use the premium one, the one that they have to pay for. which is not entirely true. The most common mistake I see when beginners start editing their video is that they think these complicated transitions that's what's all about. But in reality, simpler is better. I know this personally because I did those and I overused them, and 5 years later I understand now that a cut and fade are basically what's most important. The most important tool you can have at your disposal is the cut tool. The cut tool is present in any program. Any video editing software, free or paid, always has the cut tool. To cut videos and match them together, that's all you basically need. The most important part of a video, of any video, is the story. Anything else, the gear that you use, the camera, the filming, the editing, it all serves to aid the story. The music you choose defines what mood you can have, and it makes it so you can better tell the story. The filming gear also, the quality of video and the editing at the end jumbles everything together, and that's where I'm most thinking about the story. So when I'm editing, I'm mostly thinking if the story flows well, if it goes quick enough or just too slow, too quick, if it makes sense, if maybe this topic should be left out because it doesn't fit well with the story. All of these things are running through my head constantly. It's not about the complicated transitions or if something is really complex. Those techniques don't really serve me that well. I've done those and I still do it sometimes, but it's 99% of my edits are just cuts and fades. So, for example, here, when you see all of this, nothing of this is complicated. Most of it is just edited with cuts. They are just well-timed cuts that you understand what the viewer might want to see. This is all explained in my Level Up video course. So for now, just understand that free software goes a long way. I'm serious. Free software that you can put clips together and then put audio clips where you want them to. It does everything very well. I can do a video very well with one of those. Seriously, free editing software is more than good enough. Now the question becomes, why do I use Adobe Premiere and not a free editing software? It's mostly because of certain features. For example, when you see this shot, it's in ultra slow motion. This is only possible with Adobe Premiere or premium products. And for example, when you see this bike going and you see the text revealing behind, all of these things are only possible with the premium software. Also, something I use very often is the warp stabilizer. It basically stabilizes the video if you're filming handheld. It shakes a bit too much. The warp stabilizer helps it to stabilize the whole thing. I pay for those features as well as having Adobe Photoshop for my thumbnails. The whole package I'm very fortunate to be able to afford, so that's why I use these premium products. With that said, now it is your turn. I hope you got to understand the power that free editing software has. If you're level 1, level 2, don't worry too much about it. 100% serious when I say that most of the time, 99% of the time, I just use cuts and fades. And when I'm editing, I'm really just thinking about the story. But if you're on level 3 and want to up your editing level, then maybe it's time to consider an upgrade in programs. With that said, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson. We've now covered the main essential gear that a YouTuber might want to use. This lesson will focus on these miscellaneous random objects that I might have that only serve a single purpose, and it is to make the video look better. But this is more made for level 2 and 3. If you're starting out, you don't need these things. They just serve to tell the story better and make it more better looking, but it's not really necessary. But if you want to up your video level, then maybe stick to this because you'll learn a lot of things that are completely new. The first one is the magic arm. The magic arm basically has one clamp that you can clamp it to anything, and at the other hand you can hold your camera. So basically you can clamp it to anywhere you want, a pen, the back of your car, really unique places that you wouldn't think that would be possible compared to a tripod. The next thing I want to talk about It is a motorized slider. Basically, you can take this piece, attach it to the camera, and basically just slide it. I'm saying motorized slider because as a YouTuber, you're usually filming alone, and being able to film yourself with a motorized slider is a game changer. I've gotten really professional looking shots just by using this. This is very easy to use. You can even change a few things and maybe track to a point. Or simply, if you put it normally, you can go left to right or front to back. This also has the power to go up and down vertically. And this is just an amazing tool. It ups your level by that much. It is a little bit more expensive compared to every other upgrade, but it's definitely worth the price if you want to get these professional looking shots. A C-stand is basically what I'm using right now to put the camera facing up to down. And I would say this is not really super essential, as you can use the tripod to kind of mimic that movement. But if you're always filming at a table or at the studio or inside your own room and if you have the space for it, having a C-stand makes these top-down shots that much easier to set up every time. It is worth it for those cases. And because you can rotate around one axis, you're also able to get these shots where you're sliding on a circle, which is really unique shot. And the last one, it is a fog machine. This is the most unconventional of all of them. It's not as expensive as you think it is. It's about like what, $40, $50. This is really just out of aesthetics. You only buy this for aesthetics. This is a more kind of a level 3 kind of thing. It completely transforms your shot from looking a boring kind of shot to an amazing kind of shot just by using this fog machine. Especially if you use in conjunction with a light, you get really cool silhouettes, just as you saw in the beginning of this course. Now, with that said, it is now your turn. Maybe you are unfamiliar with all of this, familiar with some of these things. I would suggest if you are maybe feel stagnated in your video level, you can maybe pick one of those things up, try, experiment, master, and then again, maybe try another thing. All of these things, they really are really tiny details that you take the extra work and the viewer sees and understands that you put a lot of effort into the videos. It has this shift in quality of video. With that said, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson. There's a reason why this lesson is one of the last ones. Because if you're listening to this up to this far and going through all the course, thank you first of all. But second of all, and most importantly, you understand the value of knowledge. So let's say you're starting off at point A, and where you want to be, your goal, is point B. With the power of a good course or a good teacher or a good mentor, you're more likely to go on a straight path, more directly than as if, for example, if you're doing videos without any guidance or any course or any feedback, and you're just trying about yourself, like you're doing videos here and then you change maybe your direction or style, you're trying new things, or here, and then eventually, after a long way, you reach your goal, which is point B. This also applies for other things, not only video. If you're reading a good self-help book, it really helps you steer in the direction of where you want to be. You'll always kind of have to adjust constantly, but overall, it's much shorter than if you're trying things always by yourself. And that's basically the power of these courses. You're paying the premium price to get the full guidance, to know how to avoid all of this time wasted. The mix of having a good teacher, trying your best, and always are open to feedback, always helps you steer into the direction of where you want to much faster than without anything, and you're just trying out by yourself. It is possible, but it's just that much slower. With that said, now it is your turn. Maybe there are things, maybe you have everything. Maybe you have a light, maybe you have a camera. And maybe it's time to start to invest into maybe courses of how to better tell a story, or how to better speak and communicate in front of a camera. All of these tiny things can really upgrade your level in your brain. It doesn't need to be a physical upgrade all the time. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one. For this one, it is going to be more of a fun challenge. And it is the question, what would I do for different situations if I only had $100, $500, and $1,000? Let me just remind you, you're just starting out or thinking of starting. Level 2 is you've done a few videos, and level 3 is you're more experienced. You've done, let's say, 50 videos. You kind of know what you're doing at this point. If I was at this point, $100 is not enough to buy you a nice upgrade, for example, like a new camera, a new lens, or anything like that. But it is enough, just like how we spoke in the previous lesson. You can buy a good video course, how to make good videos with this money, and it really steers you maybe in the right direction. I'm also a big fan of just not having any course, just starting with what you have, maybe spending $0. For level 2, I would also basically do the same. You already know how the YouTube process goes, but you're still trying to make good videos. You're still trying to steer and learn with every video you're doing. So if I would have $100 to spend on level 2, I would still use it for a course. If I were to have $100, maybe I would spend on an upgrade that doesn't cost that much. So for example, a music subscription in case you don't have one, the Magic Arm, it's about $30, $20. The fog machine is about $40 to $50. There are small things you can do and improve your video with less than $100. Now for level 1 at $500, there's a bit more room you can play with. Maybe you can buy a used camera if you don't have one. Just make sure it has all of those features we talked about. If you're filming inside your home and you want to create a YouTube studio, you can buy an external light, a tripod with this money, and a microphone. All of these 3 things are already good enough to make good videos inside your home with your phone only. For level 2, let's imagine you already have a camera. With $500, you can buy yourself a nice lens, maybe with a different range from what you have already from the kit lens, or an upgrade from the kit lens, which is also good. But as I said, the kit lens is very good with the camera. You already have a fantastic gear at that point. At this point, it's really hard to tell what to do. You already have experience, but it really depends on the type of video you do and all the things you do to really steer you in the right direction of what you should spend. But if you already have some experience here, you already know the process, you already know what is hard. For example, if you don't have a tripod, or if you don't have a C-stand and you're always filming like this, top to down, maybe having a C-stand would be a good choice here. For level 3, I'm gonna keep this short because you already have a lot of experience, you probably have a camera. With this kind of money, it really depends on the type of videos you're doing. Maybe you want to buy some light modifiers, a new lens. The story is kind of similar to level 2. Now, if you're just starting out and you have $1,000 to spend, if you're into photography or just want a better camera than your phone, I would really suggest to buy a camera with this budget first. Even if you do YouTube videos and then kind of stop, you always have a nice camera to take around with you for events or to take better looking memories for your future. I think a camera is always a great tool to have with you. But apart from that, it's kind of the same story as 500. But I would just say, if you're just starting out, don't focus too much on what you should spend your money on. Focus on your videos, focus on doing them, maybe a editing software, but like focus on what you can do with what you have. Get a better feeling on what it's like to do videos. See if you actually like this hobby. Once you're just starting out, you really don't know if this is something for you or not. Opposed to, for example, level 2. Now you got more experience. Now you know if you actually like this or not, and I'm assuming you'd like it because then you wouldn't invest more money. So with $1,000, I would get professional music, so premium music, a nicer camera, and an editing software, if that's what you're looking for. This is a gray area because you're in between here, where you don't know anything, and you're in between level 3, which already you know everything. It becomes a different game at this level, at level 3. So if you're very experienced and you have $1,000 to spend, and you already have all of those things like a fog machine, lights, a nice camera, then at this point, this money can either buy you a more premium course, or this money allows you to do different kinds of videos. So for example, if you do travel videos, you can go to different places and try new things. It allows you to do new experiences. Money is viewed a little bit more differently. It spends a little bit less on the gear because you already have, but more on the experiences and what kind of content you can do around here. But this is, of course, a more advanced level at a higher money value. Now, with that said, now it is your turn. If you only have a budget of these things, I hope I got to make you understand better, maybe for your specific situation. If I haven't really covered specifically for your needs or you still have some doubts, then by all means, feel free to always ask a question in the discussion tab. And I definitely see all the questions and I will answer them all. With that said, I'll see you in the next one. By now, you should really understand what maybe your next upgrade should be, or your next step should be, or if you already have all the gear, what is something that you should be focusing on. Remember, always master first and then start thinking ahead, but never the opposite. If you buy too many things, chances are you'll buy something that you will never really use. But if you take one piece of gear and then experiment with it, experiment, and then master it, you really now fundamentally understand how it works. And then once you see in the future and buy something new, you truly understand, and chances are you won't buy something that you'll regret. In my own YouTube channel, I create more cinematic storytelling videos with a lot of effort, so feel free to check those out. But more importantly, I've made a course that goes step by step how to do your best video, starting from an idea, scripting, filming, and ending with the editing with a few examples. Feel free to leave a review, it really helps. And also feel free to leave your tag on the review of your YouTube channel. I'll definitely come check it out. I always am looking for new creators to get inspired. If you have any questions on any specific parts, feel free to always just ask. I check and always ask all of them. With that said, thank you so much again for joining this class, and I'll see you in another one. See ya!